Today we are going to discuss what are the data types in Java. Data types in Java. Every language should have certain data types. In Java also we have a set of data types. For example, we have set of integer data types. Integers means counting numbers. 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Negative numbers are also there. That means integer means it is not a floating point number. It is not having any decimal part. That is an integer. And signed integers as well as unsigned integers are there. And mainly we have in Java we have four types of integers that are short, int, long, and byte. Byte, short, int, long. Okay. All these are integers, and what is the difference between this? For byte only one byte is reserved. That means 8 bits are there for storing the value of a byte. As you know, using 8 bits, you can represent as minus 2 raised to 8 to plus 2 raised to 7. These are the range of values you can store in this 8 bits. That means if you have an integer value, that can be, for example, suppose that an integer value in the suppose that you have in a program, suppose that the maximum value of an integer is 100. Maximum value that can be attained by a value is 100, then we need only a byte, because can have up to 2 raised to 7 means 127 plus 100 minus 128 to plus 127. For storing that value, you need to have only a byte. There is no need for short, int, long, etc. That means that is wastage of space. But if you are using short, 2 bytes are reserved. 2 bytes. That means 16 bits. That means minus 2 raised to 16 to plus 2 raised to 15. These are the range of values. That means minus 32,000 something to plus 2 raised to plus 32 something. 32,000 something. Okay. That means these are the range of values that can be attained using short. If it is integer, 4 bytes are reserved or 32 bits, and for long 8 bytes are reserved. That means 64 bits. Depending on your application, you can either use byte, short, integer or long, int or long. That means for suppose that the maximum value of a particular variable is 1000, then you need to go for short. Maximum value may be say some 1 lakh or 10 lakh or something like that. You can either use int or long depending on the application. Okay, so these are signed integers, and you can add unsigned on the left. You can have unsigned byte, unsigned int, etc. That means when you are using unsigned, then the range of values that can be stored in is 0 to, if this is signed value, if it is unsigned, the range of values that can be stored is 0 to 2 raised to 8. Okay, 0 to 2 raised to 8 minus 1. Okay, and what is the maximum value here? Here also 0 to 2 raised to 16 minus 1. and this is 0 to 2 raised 32 minus 1 and 0 to 2 raised 64 minus 1. Okay, those are the range of values that can be stored in this. If the unsigned, suppose that if you are using say roll number, or suppose that mark of a certain person in our in your uh, everyday usage, mostly we are dealing with positive numbers. In that case, you need to have only unsigned bytes, unsigned integer, etc. Anyway, the data type integer is storing only integers. That means whether it is unsigned or signed. By default, it is unsigned. Unless you specify it as unsigned, it can store either negative values or positive values. Okay, and that's all about integers. Then the second type of data type, second data type is floating point numbers. Floating point numbers. Floating point numbers. Floating point numbers. There are two types, that is float and double. Float and double. This float is using 8 bytes and double is using 16 bytes. This is 64 bit. This is 128 bit. Okay. That is floating point numbers. If you want to have floating point number, for example, average or the pass percentage or the average mark, etc. That those are floating point numbers, and if you want to store that kind of values in a variable, then you have to go for floating point number. Suppose that if you want to say the height of a person or the weight of a person, that means which is having decimal points, then we have to go for this. Depending on the application, you can either choose float or double. For float, 8 bytes are allocated. That means the maximum value is some huge floating point value, and double is very high value. Double is storing a very high value, a huge value, and that's all about floating point numbers. Then we are going for third type, which is character. Character, that is designated as car. For this, 2 bytes are allocated. 2 bytes. In C and in earlier programming languages, only characters, for character only 8 bits are allocated. 8 bits are allocated. That means ASCII characters are ASCII, American Standard Code for Information Interchange. ASCII codes are stored in character. But unlike other programming languages, in Java, these characters are encoded as Unicode character. Unicode. That means, for example, in Malayalam also a number of characters are there. All the symbols in almost all languages. That means in the world there are numerous languages, more than 1,000 or 10,000 languages are there, and for each language there is a script, and those scripts are encoded using, that means those are characters. For example, in Malayalam we have around 100 or more, 56 letters are there, and that uh, a number of characters other than that characters also there. That means for each language a character set is there, and in the universe or in the world you can have many characters, and for encoding that you are using 2 bytes. That means that is in Unicode characters. Okay, that is character, and 2 bytes are allocated for that. And finally, another data type, which is Boolean. Boolean values can take only one value, either it is true or false. That means Boolean. Boolean It is either true or false. That means only a single bit is allocated for that. Single bit is allocated. That means if it is 1, that means it is true, and if it is 0, it is false. That means here these are the data types in Java. In Java, mainly there are four important classifications. These are integers, floating point numbers, characters, and boolean. Integers can be byte, short, integer, and long. By default, these are unsigned signed values. And if you have to override into unsigned numbers, then you have to add unsigned on the left side. And floating point numbers, float and double. Characters, 2 bytes are allocated, and these characters are encoded as Unicode. For Boolean, it's Boolean followed by your variable name, and it can take only two values, either true or false. True or false. So these are the data types in C, and you should note that the difference between other programming languages and Java is in Java character variable. Character is allocated 2 bytes and characters are encoded as Unicode. Okay. Okay, thank you.